Are you tired of seeing your team struggle against those physically dominant opponents who always seem to control the game? But what if I told you there's a defensive strategy that doesn't just shut them down, but also creates easy fast break opportunities? It's called the run and jump defense, and I've used it for years with incredible success. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how this defense can completely throw your opponents off their game, frustrate their coach to no end, and give your team the upper hand. And don't worry, if you think this defense might be too complex, I'll break it down into simple, actionable steps that anyone can follow. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll see why the run and jump defense might just be the secret weapon your team needs to dominate. The run and jump defense is a full court man-to-man strategy built on 6 key principles. I'll break each one down for you and show you how they all work together to make this defense so effective. And don't worry, you don't need to memorize everything. I've put together a free PDF listing all the principles with short descriptions, so you'll always have them ready for your practice. You can find the link in the description below. Let's get started. Alright, let's dive into the first critical principle of the run and jump defense, which sets the stage for everything else. It starts immediately after your team scores or with any inbound pass in the backcourt. Here's the key. We want the inbound pass to happen as close to the baseline as possible, ideally below the free throw line. Why? This forces the ball handler to cover more ground, giving your defense more time to apply pressure and create opportunities for traps. Now you have a choice to make. Do you want to keep your matchups consistent or prioritize slowing the inbound? If you decide to disrupt the inbound, have the player closest to the rim defend the pass to slow things down. Personally, I prefer to keep matchups intact to avoid confusion about who's guarding whom. Either way, ensure every offensive player is matched up man-to-man. While the front players stand behind their opponents so that they are not easily beaten by a lob pass, your players at half court should position themselves on the side of their opponents, ready to deny any easy passes up the floor. By controlling the inbound like this, you're already setting the tone and dictating the game's pace. Now, let's see how we build on this foundation. In the run and jump defense, we don't aim to deny the inbound pass. Playing deny defense increases the risk of a lob pass, which can immediately break down the defense and lead to an easy scoring opportunity. Instead, we allow the inbound pass, keeping our defensive structure intact. This approach ensures we can apply pressure without overcommitting. The only exception to this rule is when we want to keep the ball out of a particular player's hands, like a star player who can dominate the game, but more on that later in the video. By allowing the inbound pass and focusing on maintaining defensive integrity, we set the stage for the traps and pressure to come. Let's move on to the next principle. As soon as the ball is inbounded, we need to apply intense, maximum pressure on the ball handler. Why? Because we don't want them to have time to survey the court and make easy passes. The more rushed and uncomfortable they feel, the higher the chance of mistakes. This type of aggressive defense can feel unusual for some players. They may worry about getting beaten off the dribble, but in the run and jump defense, that's exactly what we want. As long as the defender doesn't get completely left behind and stays close enough to recover. This forces the ball handler into areas where our traps can be most effective. By applying maximum pressure, we dictate the offense's pace and limit their options. It's a mindset shift for defenders, but when executed properly, it's incredibly disruptive. Alright. Now that we are applying maximum pressure, we need to control where the ball handler goes. Our aim is to force the ball handler into an uncontrolled dribble towards the sideline. We want to deny any middle penetration as well as any pass to the middle of the court. A potential escape for the offense is a pass to midcourt. We must deny this as well. Now, if the ball handler does drive middle, we stay with our man and keep the pressure on the ball. This is where we break from the traditional strategies like the jump switch. Let me quickly explain what a jump switch is. When a ball handler drives toward a help defender, that defender steps up to cut off the lane while the on-ball defender switches to the nearest offensive player. The problem with this jump switch, it's predictable. Offensive players often bait the switch by driving middle, then passing to the next teammate, leaving two defenders behind the ball. That's not what we want. Instead, we guide the ball handler to the sideline with an uncontrolled dribble. This is the ideal trigger for a trap. Timing is crucial here, and it's something players develop with experience. The on-ball defender must stay on the dribbler's hip, sprinting to cut them off. The second defender then either trails for a blindside trap or cuts off the ball handler from further down the court. I leave the choice up to my players, as both options can be effective depending on the situation. Once the trap is set, the ball handler is stuck at the sideline with two defenders applying maximum pressure. This is the scenario we've been building toward. Now we have the perfect opportunity to cause a turnover. Here's a critical principle of the run and jump defense. No reaching in. After all the hard work of forcing the ball handler into a trap, the last thing we want is to bail them out with a foul. Instead, our focus is on intercepting the pass. The trap's goal isn't just to pressure the ball handler, it's to force an emergency pass, one made out of panic and desperation. Of course, if we win the ball outright, whether through an on-ball steal or an 8-second backhand violation, that's a bonus, but our primary objective remains the same. Make the ball handler throw a pass that we can intercept. Now, to make this work consistently, we need to add one final piece to the puzzle. Let's talk about the sixth and last principle. Because two defenders are committed to the double team, the remaining three defenders are outnumbered and must rotate into positions where they can intercept passes and cover critical areas. Here's how it works. Depending on where the trap is set, two of the off-ball defenders focus on denying the most likely passing options. One defender takes away the pass along the sideline, while the second defender positions themselves to intercept passes at the 45-degree angle, typically the next most common option. The last defender becomes the anchor. They drop into the paint to protect the rim, preventing any backdoor cuts or easy layups if the trap is broken. This safety net ensures that even if the offense finds a way through, they'll still have to work for a scoring opportunity. If our trap fails or the press gets broken, our players have one priority: sprint back. Protecting the paint is key, and easy layups are a no-go. There is no single sign for switching to our half-court defense, but after some practice, your players will know when. Now that you know how to create this aggressive and effective defense, let's take a look at some variations you can use if your opponent starts to counter your strategy. One way to increase pressure is by denying the inbound pass. This can be especially helpful when you need to force a quick steal. The players defending in the front deny their opponents by positioning themselves sideways, making it difficult for the offense to receive the ball. The rest of the defensive setup remains unchanged. However, be aware of screens or lob passes. If your players are caught out of position, it can leave you vulnerable to easy layups. Now, what happens if the offense sets a screen before the inbound pass? It's simple. We switch. This avoids any confusion. Denying the inbound pass is also effective if you want to keep the ball out of the hands of the opponent's best ball handler. Additionally, you can use the inbound defender to create a double team before the inbound pass. By leaving the second guard open, you can guide the ball to a less threatening player. One common strategy for the offense to avoid a double team is the clear route. In this tactic, all offensive players except the ball handler sprint toward the front court, leaving the ball handler with enough space to solve the problem one-on-one. To counter this, keep one help defender in the backcourt, ready to trap the ball handler. This forces the offense back into a pressure situation. However, this adjustment requires the other three defenders to rotate and prevent direct passes. The player furthest from the ball is left open. Now, before we get carried away with how amazing this defense is, it's important to also acknowledge some weaknesses. One of the main weaknesses of the run-jump defense is that it can be vulnerable to teams with excellent passing skills. if the ball handler is able to quickly pass the ball before the trap is set, or if the team is able to rotate the ball quickly after the trap, we can be out of position and open for an easy score. The key is to maintain discipline and follow the plan. Another weakness to consider is that the run and jump defense can be difficult for youth players to learn and implement effectively. The rotations, the timing of the trap, the high level of effort, the constant movement, and the overall communication are complex. It requires patience and practice to teach this to youth players in the long term. Now that we have covered the weaknesses, let's talk about the advantages of this defense. The run and jump defense is incredibly effective at disrupting and frustrating the opponent's offense. The constant pressure, the traps, the rotations, they all combine to throw the opposing team out of their rhythm. They'll struggle to get into their offensive sets and force them to take quick and bad shots. This is not just a physical advantage, but a mental one too. Furthermore, the run and jump defense is a fast break generator. The pressure and traps force turnovers, which immediately lead to easy scoring chances. You'll find your team getting uncontested layups and open shots. There's nothing more enjoyable for the players, the parents, and the supporters than a lot of fast breaks. And finally, the run and jump defense is a fantastic way to prevent your opponent from going to a zone defense. That's it for today's video. If you want to have a quick start guide about this defense, make sure to download the free PDF in the description below. You'll find all 6 principles explained in a nutshell there. Let me know in the comments what you think. And finally, if you want to learn more about the drills that you need to know, then this video is for you. Remember, this defense can be a game changer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.